All right, well, it's good to be with you today, and I hope I don't contradict anything you've already learned this morning, but I'm going to take off and go here. I am Virgil King, a crop consultant from Lexington, Mississippi. I work out in the Mississippi Delta, kind of on the east side of the state, central part of the state on the east side. I've been crop consultant now for about 35, 40 years. I haven't counted them up, but it's in that range. Primarily started out doing cotton years ago, and now, of course, like, as everything's diverse, I check about anything that can be checked other than rice. I don't fool with any rice. Still have not gone in the rice field. I was forced to go in with one of my growers several years ago, and he realized I didn't know what I was doing, so he got me back out of there. But anyway, another business I have is a Map King business. It's a piece of soil sampling software. Make you independent if you're looking for some independence for actually doing grid sampling, putting your own data in, making your own variable rate cards. If you're interested in that sort of thing, it's an internet-based system that we've developed that other consultants are using, and it's just giving them some independence for actually going in and setting their own maximum minimums as opposed to, going through some retailers and that sort of thing. So that's other business that we have going on at this time. Originally, I was going to talk more about corn production, but today I want to talk about can we really survive growing corn in 2016? And with that thought in mind, our growers and the growers I work for have a great challenge trying to make bottom lines meet right now. If you go look at the cotton prices, the corn cotton prices, soybeans, etc., and you look at your budgets and you try to figure out, what can I grow this crop? I work for about 15 growers, and I couldn't tell you today, right now, exactly what they're going to grow, other than I have an idea that some of them are saying they're going to grow some cotton, they're going to grow some corn, they're going to reduce the amount of soybeans that they have. But I couldn't tell you until the day I probably go check that field exactly what's going to be in it to the day I show up, depending on what happens between now and planting with prices and that sort of thing. So from this standpoint, what I want to do today is kind of try to look at it, can we survive, and see if there are some inputs and things that we can do to reduce our input cost without reducing our yield potential. When you look at the production decisions that'll have to be made right now as they're planting, of course they've got variety decisions, planting dates, rates and populations, fertility, insecticides, herbicides, the list, it goes right there. And they'll have to be making decisions about, what all these areas are going to cost them. So are there areas that we can lower risk and increase profitability by reducing our inputs? I think there are some small areas. I don't have any earth-shattering news for you that's going to make it just come out in the black for you. But I do think there's some things that you can be smart about and take into consideration, especially when you're looking at these budgets, and you're looking at what the bank's going to borrow you, and you're looking at how much can I actually put into this crop. One thing I think you need to remember right off is that the highest yield is not always the most profitable yield. Just for my area, and I know that Jason's talking about 285, 300 bushel corn. Where I live and where we grow corn at, if we're going 180 to 200 to 220 to 225, that's about our good solid range. And I got to see some growers from my area here, and if we can do 250, that's great, but generally speaking, when you average our farm together, dry land, varying soil types, etc., if we can come in around that 200, 210 bushel range, that's a good average expectable yield for us. With that in mind, talking about cost, I feel like you can't outpunch your coverage. You can start throwing everything in the book at corn, trying to make it increase the yields, and your project was showing different areas that you can do that, but at some point in time, realistically, if you don't get that return back from what you spent, and you get to the end of the year and you look back and you say, well, this didn't pay out this year because this happened. So what I'm coming from today is that, with the prices we have now and the inputs that we need to really manage those inputs realistically to keep those costs down with the expectation that we might not make the highest yield, but we can make a profitable yield out of what we got going on. You have to manage those budgets this year to show profits. Of course, every farm's different with fixed costs as far as land, rent, labor, equipment. Those things have to be figured out on your farm. But what I want to talk about today is some things with your direct costs, with your varieties, insecticides. You see the list right there. Where can I lower my direct input cost? Talk about varieties. I've got growers right now that are talking about getting away from some of the technology feed with their corn. Not completely getting away from it, but diversifying with more varieties that don't have the BT or yield guard gene in it. There is a savings of money there if you do that, to use some varieties with some less technology fee in it. And I think that's what we're looking for this year, is trying to figure out, can I, if I can plant non-BT corn for $12 less than the technology, there's some savings there. It's not going to be a lot of savings, but there is some savings in that input. Herbicides, I don't see a lot here to trim, because herbicides, you can go out and shop them, to try to find the little lesser price if you're doing that and you're not tied directly to one company. But not a lot. I don't see a lot of trim here. You're going to get your burned down stuff out, and then at some point in time you're going to clean up and get your Caprino or Halix and plus some atrazine or whatever out, and try to be through there. So I don't see a lot of input saving going on here. Insecticides, not really a lot here. Of course, if you go with more of the conventional type corn that doesn't have the gene in it, you need to be monitoring that corn, especially in our area for corn borers. And here again, this corn needs to be scouted and looked at regularly, and you can possibly not have to put out that corn borer application if your planting dates are early and you realize your harvest dates are going to be early. So that's something you can really play with right there, to actually, if you've changed that variety down to something that doesn't have the technology, you can actually manage here and probably come out a little ahead with that. Here's an area right here for us that I think is critical to save money on, is our fungicides. We've had a tremendous amount of work done in our area of fungicides trying to look for yield increases, and we just do not see tremendous yield increases by automatic fungicide applications. And I think you're looking at something that's going to cost you $25 to $30, and you got airplanes flying and that sort of thing. I would say this corn needs to be scouted and applied a fungicide only where you have disease present, and you've got a disease that you can't outrace toward the end of harvest. So I know that's not something that somebody who sells fungicides wants to hear, and I apologize for that, but I think you really need to pay attention here for your inputs, and you can lower your input if you've been using automatic fungicide at pre-tassel going in. Is something you need to consider here as far as inputs for this year. Now, this area right here, fertility, and I'm not fixing to tell anybody to cut their fertility to cut their throat. And I don't want Bobby Golden calling me and saying, "What in the world did you say in that room about cutting fertility?" Okay, I don't want him calling me. But there is some good savings, or some savings you can make fertility-wise if you're paying attention and you know what your fertility levels are on your farm. I would not recommend for anybody to go out and start cutting fertility if you don't have a good, solid soil report, years of data, knowing your farm, your field, your soil types, what needs to go there, etc. You need a soil sample, and I'll preach this. I'm a soil sampler, and I'm not telling you that because I soil sample, but every farm needs a sample soil so that you know where your fertility levels are, and that's one thing that we do with our growers. All my growers that I work for use us to do that, and we're able to grid sample. We're able to figure out. We use a lot of variable rate stuff to get fertilizer where it needs to be put, etc. Now, you see that next thing everybody's looked at. You just heard about starter fertilizers and increasing yield. I'm saying in this year, not knowing whether you're going to increase your yield with a starter fertilizer at $20 to $25 an acre, that's a consideration for you not to use a starter to try to survive in 2016. That's a lot of money, $20 to $25, not knowing exactly whether you're going to get that return. Jason's data shows you was getting a return. We've got data down our way that don't always show a return. And I've got growers, I work for about 15 growers, and I've probably got 4 growers that use no starter fertilizer. And we do not see, they are not losing out, and their yields are as good, because I know the yields, as my growers that are using starter. Had a grower this past year that always does plot work. He does it with Pioneer, variety trials with corn. They put out about 12 or 15 varieties, and all of them were planted with starter. And when they got through, they had a variety left in the planter, and they said, well, let's make a run, just no starter. And they did. And the variety that won the trial was the no starters. It had the highest yield, and it wasn't a lot of difference, but it had the highest yield. There again, I know, if you've got to get your zinc, you got to get, some micro stuff out, infer, possibly, you don't want to do that, but I think that's one place where you're looking at a substantial amount of money for this year with trying to make a budget work. And of course, with no starter, you can see the difference now. I mean, you can go by the guy that's got it and his corn's pretty and green, and the guy that don't, and then 3 weeks later, you can't tell them apart. I'm just telling you how it goes when the weather level's out. Nitrogen, would not try to cut your throat by not getting enough nitrogen out, but you can overdo this nitrogen thing. I've had growers in the past that have blown way too much nitrogen out. They never got the return on it. Our area, a good solid 220 pounds an end, to make the kind of yields we're looking at is good. If you're fishing to start trying to blow that 250, 270 to 300 out, this year with the risk you've got for inputs in a budget, you need to go with what you know will work to make the kind of yield your budget's looking like, and not overdo that deal with nitrogen. I would not, if you're getting the right amounts out, of course all that's through the year, knowing rainfall, etc. Did I lose nitrogen? Have I still got what I thought? But be a real hard consideration for me for this year to put at-tassel nitrogen out on corn, other than if I knew I had the highest yielding field, great variety, water, etc. There would be some situations where I would probably do that. Fertility wise, and here it goes back to that soil sample with your phosphorus and your potassium, there are some great savings that can be made right there with those two products this year in a crunch time with needing to lower inputs. If you've got a good soil test that tells you I have really good levels of phosphorus, really good levels of potassium there, where you can either not put any out or really reduce those rates. That's big time savings on P and K for 1 year in a crunch where we are right now, to not put out what you would normally do there. Zinc, sulfur, we've got to get, according to our soil test, and of course the variable rate deal that we're doing with our soil sampling business is really good for getting products where you need it. Here's an area, and this is a growing area, a new area. My son Nick's in the room. He's running a consulting business now that's doing irrigation monitoring. He's actually producing irrigation equipment with data loggers to record soil moisture level real time through the internet, through your phone. You can see what's going on with your moisture sensors. Great money can be saved here, because I've had people for years that just want to water and overwater, running diesel and electricity, etc. Right now, for this year, for our inputs, you can really help yourself if you'll irrigate based on what we're learning about soil moisture levels and not just doing it on a schedule. One of the biggest things that we see with corn early in our year that reduces our yield, I've never been on a combine with a guy that didn't tell me when I was riding it with him, well, it was too wet right here, that yield monitor drops. Well, this is a wet spot. You can get corn too wet, and you don't want it to have just solid wet feet. And I think, if you're paying attention on your farm right here for this year with inputs, substantial savings can be made if you're able to reduce a watering, reduce 2 waterings, know what to do after a rain, when to start back after a rain, etc. That technology will really, really help you with that. So in summary, let me just see if we're doing pretty good on time, 5 till. A little bit of money there with varieties you can save input wise. Herbicides, you know, you can shop them, but you're not going to do a lot there. Fungicides, I'm saying no automatic, scout your field. You use a fungicide when you got disease. That's the approach that we'll be taking. Fertilizer, no starter. If you want to do no starter, I think you got a tremendous savings there if you're, you know, with no starter. I really do now. P&K, of course, we just talked about that based on your soil report. And I'm telling you, don't go out here and say something. Bobby Golden's going to call me and say, I said, cut your fertilizer. And I'm not just telling you to cut your fertilizer. I'm telling you to pay attention to what you got. And if this is a year where you have got great fertility levels and you can get by with less P&K and keeping your nitrogen at a rate where you know your target yield, you got enough for your target yield to make your budget work, that's where it's going to be important. That's going to be important to do in a year like we've got right now. And then the last thing there with irrigations, you've got some great savings if you're paying attention to the technology and can get by with less water, but using water at peak times when the corn crop needs it. There's some great savings to be made there. So with that, I'll say thank you, and any questions, I'll be glad to entertain. You might have more. Go ahead.
Virgil, just for one thing, having worked in fertility for 35 years in Mississippi Delta, amen, brother. The key to what Virgil just said is you have to know what your soil fertility levels are. You know, if you're going to reduce P and K, if you don't know what it is, you can't do it.
That's right.
So you've got to know. So I'm glad you're on my soapbox on soil testing. That's the key to this whole thing. Well,
I've got farms right now that we've got over 300 pounds of K. 400, 500, 600 from built it up. We've got P levels at 65, 70, 80, 90 that we won't have to go out there in a year like we've got and spend that $40, $50, $70 an acre. And that's reducing an input to make a budget work for 2016. And that's the kind of thing growers are having to face right now to try to survive this until hopefully these prices will get back. Because we're making good yields in our cotton and our corn, our beans. And I don't know how many times I go on a farm and I think, man, I've never made yields like this before since I've been doing it in this business. Cotton yields at 1,500 pounds, and the guy's telling me he's losing money. You know, it's just where we are. Until these prices come back for us, you know, we've got to figure out how to manage those inputs, not cut our throats, but survive.
I think, Virgil, it's also important, you just said it, this pertains not only to corn, but to all crops.
All crops.
Not just corn.
That's right.
Virgil, the previous speaker alluded to the deep plowing did not pay. Now, do you have an opinion on that?
I've worked on a farm that was strong, no-till for many years, and that no-till, when we break that land at some point in time to get a road back or whatever, our yields go up. I got growers that will break down the road, you know, not just 45 angle or whatever, but I believe at some point in time of getting that land broke again, I think you can go year, you know, after a good breaking, you might can go down the road, but at some point in time, our yields go up when we break our land. Now, I know it for a fact.
Do you think the fact that he stated that they broke the land in the spring versus the fall could have something to do with that?
It could very well. I've got land up next to the hills that we would have to break in the spring because it wouldn't do any good to break in the fall. It'd all be back where it was, you know, by then. But I think you're right about that. Yeah. But I mean, I've seen, because I'm on different farms, I've seen no breaking make 160 bushel beans, and the guy that I got that's breaking every year 220. I'm just telling you, I ain't got no data to throw on the thing for you, but I know where the bottom line is, and I know what's going on with it, you know.
Just to clarify that, Virgil, you meant 160 bushel corn.
Corn, right.
You said beans.
I'm sorry. I apologize. You know how it is when you get over in your 50s. You know what you're thinking, but you don't always come out right.
What about on your, I'll catch you.
Do what now?
I'll catch you a weed later.
Okay. All right.
Where are y'all's sulfur levels going?
Where's our what?
Sulfur levels of the.
Generally, we have to use sulfur every year. Our sulfur moves through the soil real fast, and most of the time we're calling for 15 to 20 pounds of sulfur, and I need to get sulfur out on all crops. You know, I have to fight them with the soybeans. They don't want to put any sulfur out. But I'll allude back to that no starter. I got a guy. I'll just quickly tell you that he puts part of his nitrogen out with ammonium sulfate buggy behind his planter himself, reducing costs, reducing inputs. He's got a little mix of phosphorus that goes with it. It's just a broadcast slung. When the planter runs, that buggy's following him. And I mean, there's a way to get some of your nitrogen out, your sulfur out, etc. yourself, not paying an applicator to have something there, you know, for at planting.
You said that he's putting out phosphorus behind the plant.
He puts a little.
Is that go, if the plant won't take it up, will it, because it's moving so slow through the soil?
No,
It's broadcasting on top of the ground. I was always told that.
Well, it's-
Put that phosphorus out in furrow behind, when you're planting, so the plant, when it takes it up.
If you're wanting to get phosphorus in fur on the root at planting for just straight pull-up, yeah, you got to get it right there in that root zone if you're wanting, but that phosphorus is going to work now.